Hey, are you a salesperson that wants to learn how to sell far more than you are now? You could be one of these 5 people. You could be a salesperson that's like way below average and you know you're about to get fired if you don't learn how to sell more. You could be a salesperson that's average, but you're like, hey, I need to get really good at this so I can control my own destiny, make more sales, make more money. You might be a good salesperson, but you're like, man, I want to become the best in my office, #1 person, get all the company awards. Or maybe you're the best in your company, but you're like, I need to acquire more skills to become the best in the entire industry where everybody knows I am the very best. There's no doubt about it. So if you're one of those 5 people, entrepreneurs, business owners, salespeople, sales managers, coaches, consultants, anybody that's selling anything that wants to persuade anybody to do anything, you want to sell more of your thing, I'm going to show you what is being called the new model of selling, NEPQ, by tens of thousands of salespeople pretty much in every country, in every industry, including yours, watching me. Come over to this vibe board, we're going to break down the new model of selling versus maybe how you've been forced to sell by the company you work for or for some sales guru who never really was that successful at sales themselves, or maybe they haven't sold for decades. Come over to the vibe board. I'm going to break down the new model of selling for you and give you different industry-specific examples if you want to sell more of your product, your service, your thing. Come on over here, I'm going to show you. All right, so I'm going to show you the differences between what we call the old model of selling compared to NEPQ, the new model of selling. And then I'm going to show you some industry-specific examples and kind of break down the psychology behind each stage of NEPQ. Now remember, that stands for Neuro Emotional Persuasion Questioning, NEPQ, okay? So here's kind of like the old way of selling. This would be called like the AIDA model of selling. It can be repackaged as consultative selling. You might have heard of that. This is known as more of the old model, AIDA model. It's repackaged as consultative selling as well. It stands for attention, interest, desire, action. Okay, and let me put this down here a little bit. Compared to NEPQ, which we call the new model of selling, neuro-emotional persuasion questions. New model, old model. Now, if you look at here, this might be familiar to some of you. The old model, I'm just going to break this down for you. The old model was the first 10% was really, kind of trying to build rapport. You were taught to ask them like, hey, how's your day going? How you doing today? How's the weather? You know, if you're on Zoom, where do you live? If you're on the phone, did you see the game last night? You're trying to identify with common beliefs. That is kind of the old way that you were taught to build rapport, okay? We call that actually fake rapport because do your prospects, have they heard that before? What are some predictable questions they are used to every salesperson that's ever tried to sell them anything ask? How are you doing today? How's your day going? How's the weather over there? And they know what you're trying to do. So a lot of prospects interpret those type of questions as, I'm just trying to get you to like me so I can sell you my product, my service, my thing. And you'll notice they kind of shut down. They kind of emotionally start to stay surface level with you. You want to stay away from predictable questions that every salesperson uses because the prospect, they have that script in their brain. So if you sound like other salespeople, they treat you like other salespeople, lower status, right? You don't want to act like that, okay? And a lot of it kind of gets them into, I hate to say this, price or cost-based thinking early on, okay? We want to get them into results-based thinking. I'm going to show you that in a second. Now, the next 10% was kind of asking, just going to be real with you, kind of surface level questions. Hey, what keeps you awake at night? What are some 2 challenges that you're having? What are you looking for in a solution? Now, those are what we would say logical-based questions. But the problem is, do human beings buy on logic or emotion? Emotion. Okay, 100%. There's no debate in behavioral science on this. The brain studies prove this. Okay, I feel like a drink of water because I'm thirsty. I feel like, see, every decision you make starts with your emotional side of the brain. I feel like checking my phone because maybe my dad just sent me a text or maybe my girlfriend or something, okay? See, now, the next, so like the first 20%, fake rapport, questions every salesperson asks, how are you doing today? Surface level questions, what are 2 problems that keep you awake at night? What are you looking for in a solution? What's your budget for this type of thing? And then we go into what we call features and benefits. Okay, so they give you a problem, oh, I'm having this problem, and you start selling to that problem. You start selling to that need. The problem is you don't really help them relive their pain. You don't really open them up emotionally. You just go off their surface level answer to one of your surface level questions, okay? And then you start going into your presentation, and that's like half of the conversation, talking about all the features and benefits and how you have the best this and the best that, which How many salespeople say they have the best product or service, or they're the number one in the market? Everyone, right? Even if you are, most prospects don't believe you are because they're used to, once again, every salesperson saying and sounding the same way. And then it's that last 30 seconds, we try to close. It's buy or die, high sales pressure, okay, objection handling, and that's the deal. So like 50% presentation, 30% closing and objection handling, and really only 10% questions with another 10% fake rapport, okay? Now, this model right here, the old model, this is where we get the numbers game mentality. Hey, sales is a numbers game. Just call more leads, work harder, knock more doors, get more no's to get that yes. Now, that game you can do decent at, but there's going to be a level it caps you at. And a lot of people burn out because they can't take the emotional rejection of being rejected by most prospects. Human beings were not developed to just have thick skin and just go through the numbers and motions. That's why selling has the highest attrition of any profession in the world, because of this selling model and other forms of it that causes the very sales resistance and objections that you don't like, okay? So what I did in my behavioral science background is I looked at this model, because I'm a weirdo, and I questioned everything. I'm like, well, why are we doing it this way? Even as a 22-year-old kid, I'm like, I don't understand. Why is it buy or die? Now, you can't get to the end and be like, well, let me know if you're interested. Like, you can't be all timid. You have to be seen as the expert, the trusted authority, right? So you have to close, all right? Or at least move the sale forward if you're more of a complex selling environment in B2B, okay? So what I wanted to do is I'm like, how do I flip the model? How do I flip this, okay? So if you know my background, I went to school for behavioral science, human psychology, and I really studied social dynamics in concepts of what we call rank framing, how people would rank themselves in society throughout all history of society. Okay, how is your status or your rank viewed in our society today? The two biggest things are your social media following, right, and your wealth. That is typically how most people are ranked and have status in our society. Now, let's say you lived on the Polynesian Islands 1,000 years ago. How would your status be ranked? By the tribal tattoos you had on your arms would show your rank in society. Or in medieval times, if you were a duke or a knight or prince, see, that's how you were ranked. That's rank framing or status framing, okay? So as a salesperson, how does society typically view salespeople in general? Lower status, right? Even if you make $600,000 a year, you might make more than a doctor. The doctor's going to be viewed far higher status than you are, right? They've got a degree on the wall. They've got the white coat. They have respect. You could be making twice as much as that doctor, but you're still going to be viewed at a lower status. So I'm like, how do we flip this? Because if nothing is sold, there is no economy, right? Everything has to be sold to have an economy. Everything that you have right now in your possession was sold. Somebody sold that, okay? Society does not function without an economy. So if there's no selling, there's no economy, that means there's no society. I mean, we've been selling stuff since the dawn ages of man, whenever that was. That's all debatable when God put the first humans here. So I wanted to flip this. How do I raise my status in the prospect's mind where they view me at a higher status than them in what I'm talking about? We call that situational status or rank status in social dynamics. Okay, I'm getting kind of nerdy here with the science stuff. Now, so what I wanted to do, because I found really the sale is not made with a closing question like, do you want the red one or the blue one? That's not when the prospect, as you know, decides to buy. If they're like, oh, I want the blue one, that means they had already decided that before you asked them that question. And where did they decide that? They decided that in the engagement part of the conversation. Does that make sense to you? When you built a gap from where they are to where they want to be, they felt so much internal tension or need that they felt like, I have to change. Okay, what are the two biggest emotional drivers that cause a human being to want to change? Pain and the fear of future pain. If we can't help them relive their pain or have a fear of future pain, they feel no need to change. And if they feel no need to change, that's why you get tons of objections, and that's why they don't buy from you. So I wanted to flip that. So first of all, how do I spend 85% of that conversation building trust and getting, so the first thing I have to do is I have to get them to let their guard down. I'm going to show you to do that with NEPQ connection questions. If I can get them to let their guard down, they emotionally start to open up. But most salespeople, because we're using these old techniques, trigger sales resistance early on and the guard comes up. And do you ever notice when you ask questions that you thought were good, a lot of your prospects give you vague, generalized, surface level answers? That's because they have resistance, right? Something you said or how you use your tone triggered them to stay surface level. They don't want to open up. So how do I change that? By getting them to let their guard down. I'm going to show you some examples. Then immediately, how do I get them into results-based thinking? Okay, if I can get this over here, results-based thinking over price or cost-based thinking. I'm going to show you a few examples. How do I then help them find problems they didn't know they have? That's called problem finding. How do then I build a gap from where they are to where they want to be, not by telling them, that goes in one ear out the other, but by my questioning and my tone allows them to feel that tension themselves. And then how do I also prevent objections from happening? So if you're so everybody knows what objections you get for your industry, right? So how about I ask questions in that process that prevent those objections from even happening in their mind? Now, that doesn't mean you're going to prevent 100% objections, but if we could show you how to prevent even half of the objections you get now, by default, you're going to do what? Sell more than you are now, okay? And then how do we future pace? How do we get them to see what the future looks like once the newfound problems are solved? And all of this builds trust. I always say this, people buy from salespeople or companies they trust can get them the best result. They do not buy just because they like you, right? You like a lot of your friends, but would you ever do business with them? No, because you don't trust that they have the business skills to be successful. You're still like them, but you don't trust them that they can get you the best result. You love grandma, but you might meet a complete stranger selling the same thing as grandma, and if you feel that complete stranger is going to get you a better result than grandma, who are you going to buy from? You're going to buy from the stranger. You love grandma though, okay? Doesn't mean you want them to hate you though, okay? But liking you is just secondary to trusting you that you can get them the best result. Those are two very different things, okay? And then I only need to spend about 10% of that conversation or conversations presenting my solution to solve their problems, okay? Because I already know how to present it and position it in a way because they've already told me everything they want and need, okay? And then closing is really just getting them to commit to the next step. That's like 2 to 5% of the sales process. Closing is not like a 30% thing, okay? So I wanted to go over that just kind of so you could see the differences. So I want to show you one last thing. So right here, this is the key. 85% of you making that sale is in right here, the engagement stage, right here. What's going on? 85%. 85% is building trust and building gap. And I'm going to show you questions to use, not how are you doing today, questions that build trust by getting the prospect to think deeper about their current situation and the consequences if it doesn't change and where they want to be, all right? Now, let's go into the first part of NEPQ. Now, this is called, let me find it here, wrote this all out for you, consequence questions, okay? Now, consequence questions are very important. Here's the kind of the psychology behind it. First of all, consequence questions immediately take the focus off of you and puts it on your prospect, right? Why would you want to do that? Because if you're just focused on you, what do they feel? Salesperson trying to sell me something. So I take that focus off me, put on them immediately. Because people want to talk about themselves, right? Then I have to get them quickly into what we call, let's see, results-based thinking over price or cost-based thinking. See, if you're just selling on price and cost, what happens? Well, you get commoditized. So they always want cheaper deals and they keep looking around price shopping. I'm getting them into results-based thinking. When I was in the trenches for almost 18 years as a salesperson like you, okay, making multiple 7 figures a year in commissions in the 4 industries I sold in, 2 B2B, 2 B2C, I rarely had a prospect that ever said, hey, can you give me a cheaper price? Or, hey, I'm talking with a competitor X and they're 5 or 10% cheaper than you. You know why? Because I knew how to keep and get them into results-based thinking where even if my product or service was 10, 15% more, they were still buying from me because they trust that I could get them the best result. And people will pay more if they trust you can do that, okay? Now, we're also gonna use connection questions to disarm the prospect to get them to let their guard down. And I'm going to show you specifically in this video you're watching how to use your tonality to actually cause your prospect to open up, engage with you. Let's go ahead and take a look at NEPQ connection questions. So they do three main things. First of all, they're going to take the focus off of you, immediately put it on the prospect. Okay, very, very quickly, split second. Doesn't matter if it's inbound leads that booked on your calendar, if it's an outbound lead who put in their name, email, and phone number from some type of ad, you're calling them back. They just don't know who's calling them and when, or it could even be a cold call, or it could be door-to-door. It really does not matter, B2B, B2C. I'm going to show you a few different examples. The second thing it does is it immediately gets the prospect into what we call results-based thinking over price or cost-based thinking. So if you get a lot of objections like your price is too high, can you do it cheaper, I'm just shopping around, I want to compare vendors, that's because you haven't learned yet how to take them from price or cost-based thinking into results-based thinking. Results-based thinking doesn't matter if your prices are 10, 20% more than others. If they feel like you can get them the best result, they will always pay more than the company or product or service that they don't really know can get them that same result. I'll show you a few examples of that. And then really the most important thing is it helps to disarm the prospect quickly in that conversation where they let their guard down. How many times have you noticed when you ask a lot of your prospects questions, a lot of them give you vague, generalized, surface level answers. They don't emotionally open up. And human beings buy on logic or emotion. Brain studies show it's 100% emotion, okay? I feel like a drink of water right now, right? Every decision you make starts with your emotional side of your brain and you justify with logic, okay? I'll show you a few examples of that. Now, there's a couple different ways to play the ball game of sales. And if you're one of our clients, you know we train a lot about this. There is what most salespeople have been taught, the numbers game approach, okay? Call more leads, knock more doors, talk to more prospects. This is all going to depend on your industry, okay? Talk to more people. You're going to get a lot of no's, but you're looking for that yes. You're going to get thick skin, tons of rejection, work harder. Now, that way of selling has gotten you where? To where you're at. Nothing more, nothing more. Because there's a cap. Because this, you're just going through the numbers, you run out of time. I would rather focus on the skills game strategy where I'm focused on the quality of each conversation, meaning the questions I'm asking, I'm always trying to tweak those to make them the best, to get the prospect to internalize. More pain, more problems, okay? I want to get much better at learning how to use my tone, my tonality, to cause the prospect to let their guard down so they're not surface level. I want to get much better at problem finding, helping them find problems they didn't realize they had. Because if you're able to help them not just find one problem, but if you learn the skills to help them find 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 other problems they didn't realize they had, how do they start to view you? More like an expert, okay? Somebody they can trust because they've never internalized the questions. They've never had salespeople ask them the same type of questions we're going to train you, especially if you're a client. We'll show a few examples here. And how do we help them find problems they didn't know they had? Okay, so skills game or the numbers game? I want to play the skills game. So as an example, rather than getting one sale out of every 10 prospects I talk to, why not learn how to develop a higher skill level and sell 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 or higher? That's the skills game approach. You work less, you make way more sales, you make more commissions, and you help way more people solve their problems and get what they want, okay? Now, one thing that we all have to understand, this is kind of behavioral science 101. Within the first 5 to 12 seconds of any sales conversation you're ever going to be in, it doesn't matter if it's in person, on the phone, in an office setting, in a house setting, it doesn't really matter. Your prospects are picking up on social cues from you. Subconsciously, they can't even help it because we're human. And they're picking up on your nonverbal and verbal cues based on your tonality and what you are saying and asking in your body language, if they can see you, that triggers their brain to react in one of 2 ways, okay? If you come across too excited, okay, now I don't mean be boring or timid, okay, but if you come across way enthusiastic, like a salesperson does, okay, if you come across needy, if you come across like you're attached and you're pushy, and you don't understand the right questions to ask with the tone, that triggers what we call fight or flight mode. You ever heard of fight or flight mode? You've heard of it, but do you know what triggers that in your prospect's brain? It's actually your tonality. that triggers that. And I'm going to show you a few examples, okay? Now, when we play the skills game approach, okay, especially if you get our advanced training, we show you a little bit here on YouTube. We're going to train you how to come across more neutral, more unbiased. Like you're not quite sure you can even help yet. You don't know enough details. Now, as you build the gap, you become more assumptive. But in the beginning, I have to get them to let their guard down. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by that. You're going to learn how to come across more calm, collected, and detached, more like an expert does, who doesn't need the business because they've got lots of business. They're the expert, they're trusted authority. Of course, everybody's coming to them, okay? That triggers the brain to get them to let their guard down where they become curious enough to want to engage with you and have an open conversation, okay? There's way more trust there, okay? Now, I'm going to show you a few different ways to actually do this. Now, this right here is very generic. Okay, I'm going to show you a generic couple ways, and then I'm going to show you a couple industry-specific ways. Now, if you want far more details, far more advanced training, just message us directly. Somebody can reach out to you and go through the details, all right? Yeah, let's say this is an outbound lead. Somebody's put in their name, email, phone number, okay? And they know somebody's calling them back. They just don't know who when. You're going to get some paper. I'm not kidding you. It's a pattern interrupt. If they hear the paper on the phone, triggers curiosity. What are they shuffling? Okay, these are pattern interrupts. You don't want to sound like every salesperson's ever called them because they put you in that bucket and they're not interested. We don't need it, can't afford it. So this is outbound lead, not cold calling. Yeah, is this John? Yeah, hey John, it's Jeremy. Jeremy Miner with XYZ Company. It looks like you recently responded to an ad and you asked us to call you back about looking at getting possible help with your blank so that you guys could blank, right? Now, we're going to plug in the problem and repeat back the end result of what we do. Okay, that's going to depend on the industry, and I'll show you a few different examples. Now, that's just one example of how to start an outbound call with connection questions. The next question, this is very generic. Hey, so when you went through the ad and you saw XYZ, what was it that they were, I guess, going over that caused you to, want to look into this further? Okay, that is just another connection question to get them to tell you why they're looking. But more importantly, who are they telling? They're telling themselves why they're looking. Now, there's a lot more to that. I'm just giving you kind of an overview in this video here on YouTube, okay? Now, inbound leads a little bit different. Let's say they book on your calendar and you're meeting them on Zoom, okay? Get on Zoom. Hey, all right. Hey, John, welcome over here. Can you hear me okay? Oh, okay, yeah. You go back. Okay, and can you see me? You only say that if they have their video turned off. And I'll show you why I'm doing that in other trainings. Okay, so it looks like you booked on the calendar about possibly getting help with your blank so that you guys are able to blank, right? Now, repeating back the end result of what you do, I start to get them into results-based thinking, okay, over price or cost-based thinking. Now, let me show you a few different industry-specific examples. Okay, in this example, let's say you sell for an auto dealership. That's a big industry we train in as well, okay? Say you're an internet manager. Somebody sees a red Audi, okay, or whatever, online, fills out the form. They know somebody's calling them back from the dealership. They don't know who and when. Yes, it's John? Hey, John, it's Jeremy. Jeremy Miner from XYZ Audi. You asked us to call you back. It looks like you just responded to an ad on Facebook this morning about possibly looking at that 2022 red A6 Audi, right? End result, okay, if I'm selling cars, okay? Then I'm tweaking this a little bit. Yeah, we just got that car on a trade-in that you were looking at. What aspects of the car cause you to maybe want to test drive it? Okay, I'm slowing down my tone. That's called verbal pacing. I won't get into the details of what that means in this video, okay? Now, here's another one, connection question. Okay, and do you know what type of vehicle you might be looking for besides just the red Audi, just in case it's already gone by the time you get down here to look at it? Now, I'm also finding out what other cars they're interested in, and I'm also building urgency, not by saying, oh, there's lots of people looking at you, better get down here before it's gone. Most people don't believe you, even if that's the case. That's like fake urgency. Because I'm saying just in case it's already gone by the time you get down here to look at it. So I'm implying that, but in a way that sounds more believable, just in case, because it could be gone, okay? Now, there's a lot more to that. In other trainings, we'll show you that. Now, let's say if you sold SaaS. I'm going to show you different parts of connection questions. Let's say this is an inbound lead, an SDR cold called, book this onto your calendar. Okay, in this example, let's say you sell SaaS for associations, okay, to help them get rid of the manual process with their data, and this is all done now streamlined and automated by your product, your service. Okay, so it looks like you booked in with us to look at possible outside help with your awards program and maybe being able to automate that process, right? See, if I'm selling SaaS for associations who are doing it manually, the end result is you're not selling SaaS, you're selling the results of what your service does, which is to automate the process, reduce their time they have to spend on it manually, lots more stuff, okay? There's more to that. Now, same thing, let's go to another industry. I'll show you a few here. You're going to show this very similar. Now, let's say you sell HVAC. It's a big industry we're training as well. And let's say you have an in-home appointment that was set up by the technician who was there a week ago to look at their heating and cooling system that had broken down. Okay, so it looks like, so one of our technicians, Ryan, I guess he was just out here and scheduled, and you guys scheduled about possibly looking at maybe upgrading your heating and cooling system to, he had mentioned, get kind of the air circulating in the upstairs so your kids are able to sleep better at night, right? If that was the case. I'm just plugging in the end result of what you do. You're not selling heating and cooling systems, you're selling the results of what the heating and cooling system does for them. In this case, let's say they want to cool the upstairs better because they're younger kids, it's hot up there, they're having a hard time sleeping in the summers. I just plug that in, okay? So hey, when you were talking to Ryan, besides just obviously wanting to get air conditioning upstairs, what was it that he kind of mentioned that caused you to, want to look into this further? That's another connection question. Okay, I'm going to show you one or two more here. Let's say if you sell financial services. Now you're going to notice that the formula is very similar on every industry. We train 161 different industries, including yours watching me. In fact, if we don't train your industry, you would never see this video because we target people that are in the industries we train, right? So if you're watching this, we already trained your industry. Okay, so in this example, let's say you sell financial services to a consumer. It's already been booked in by an SDR, or maybe you cold call, booked in an appointment. Now you're meeting them on Zoom, okay? Hey John, hey, welcome to the call. I'm a little bit behind schedule. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, and can you see me? If their video's off. I can't see you. Is your video broken? I'm kind of confused. Oh yeah, sorry. Most of the time they'll just click on. Oh yeah, I just had it off, and they click it on because they feel almost embarrassed, okay? Now there's more to that, okay, but I'm just showing you a little bit here. Okay, so it looks like you booked on the calendar about looking at maybe some outside, some possible help with your retirement planning and 401k options to get maybe a higher rate of return, right? Okay, if I'm selling financial services, I'm selling the result of what that does, help them retire on time, maybe protect their principal, and or get them a higher rate of return depending on what you're doing, okay? That's a way to start that. Okay, now let me show you maybe one more here, okay, because there's a lot of different connection questions we're going to ask. Let's say if you sold, let's just go back. I'm going to show you a couple more options there, okay? Keep it simple with you. Okay, then I'm going to go into my second connection question. Okay, so it looks like you spoke with my associate Tiffany the other day. I guess what was it that you guys kind of discussed that caused you to, want to look into this further? Well, we were talking about this and we were talking about that. Now that gives you kind of an idea of what's going on, an overview. And then I'm going to go into what we call an NEPQ status frame, where they know there could be next steps after this conversation is over if it fits into what they're looking for. Nice, casual, non-pressure, but in a way where they view you as more of the expert, the person they trust. Okay, okay. Yeah, and I would say, in the first part of this call, it's pretty basic. It's really more for us to understand kind of what you're doing now to save for retirement and kind of the results you've been getting from that compared to maybe where you're wanting that to be, to kind of see what that gap looks like. And then towards the end of the call, if you feel like, hey, this might be what you're looking for, we can kind of go over some options and talk about possible next steps. Would that help you if we did that for you? Yeah, sure. Now, here's what I did. Why am I downplaying it? Because my first job is what? To get them to let their guard down, nice and relaxed. If I upplay it, I'm so excited to be on here, I'm going to show you something great, and at the end, if you feel it's what you're looking for and I feel you're a good fit for me, I'll show you how to get started. That's what a lot of salespeople do. Triggers resistance because they know what that means. So I'm downplaying it. Now, I'm not doing it in a negative way. Yeah, this call's going to suck, it's horrible. That's not what I mean. I'm more neutral. First part of this call, it's pretty basic. So I want them to let their guard down. Because if I can get them to let their guard down, they become more open to answering the questions I'm asking truthfully and going below the surface. It's really more for us to understand, watch my hands, kind of what you're doing now for retirement and kind of the results you're getting from that. Look, I don't want to say results you're getting from that here, results you're getting from that compared to maybe where you're wanting them to be. See, I just visually created a gap to see what that gap looks like. Visually, I just create a gap. Even if I'm on the phone, am I still doing that? Yes, because my body language affects my tonality. If I don't move, I sound like a robot. It's very hard to talk, okay? Then, towards the end of the call, if you feel like, hey, this might be, why would I use might be and possible next steps? Because those are neutral terms. That's neutral languaging, because how much trust and credibility do I have in the first 1 or 2 minutes of a conversation? Not that much, unless they already trust and know me. More than likely, they don't. So I'm going to be far more neutral in the beginning. It's hard for them to say, no, we can not talk about possible next steps. They're not. But if I said, hey, towards the end of the call, if you're like, hey, this is what I'm looking for, I'll show you how to get started. Fair enough? Well, that sounds good, but let's see what you got, because I'm still shopping around. And you might trigger an A-type to give you a little resistance. Now the wall's up. Now you got to compete against the wall. I want to keep the wall down. If I say you feel like, hey, this might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. No one will ever say, no, we cannot talk about possible next steps, because it's neutral. Okay, see where I'm at. Okay, now, those are a few examples of connection questions. Now, there's a lot more there. We have connection questions for every industry, including yours, in our virtual training programs for our clients. If you want no more details about that, you can always message us, okay? All right, let's go over to, now that we've kind of got them to let their guard down, we're getting them into results-based thinking over price or cost-based thinking. We now want to understand what their real situation is. Now, let's go to NEPQ situation questions. These are asked right after your connection questions. And what this does, it does two things. First of all, it helps you understand what the prospect's real situation is. Okay, why would you want to know what their real situation is? Because if you don't really understand what their real situation is, how are you going to build a gap to where they want to go if you don't really know where they're at, if you're guessing, or if you think that every prospect situation is the same you talk to? That's a huge mistake. You'll lose tons of deals because you don't really understand the real situation. So when you go in your presentation, you're presenting to something that you don't even know. You're guessing. You're throwing mud against the wall, hoping and praying something you're going to say is going to magically cause them to want to buy. I call that hoping. It's a drug a lot of salespeople take. Very hard and unpredictable way to make a really big living as a salesperson or scale your company or grow it. Even if you're a Fortune 500 company now, how are you going to increase sales next year by 30% or 50% growth? Because we've seen that happen once you start to learn these type of things in every industry, okay? Now, the second thing it also does is it helps your prospects, this is most important, helps your prospect understand their real situation. Because most of your prospects, you know this when you talk to them, first talk to them, don't really understand their real situation. Who was it that said, Steve Jobs said that most consumers don't really know what they need? That's valid. They might have an idea of their problems, but they don't understand the depth of those problems. They don't understand how bad those problems really are. They don't especially understand what the consequences are if they don't do anything about solving those problems, okay? So this is helping us understand the real situation, helping them understand. Because if we can't help them understand the real situation, how are you going to build a gap to where they want to go if the prospect doesn't even really understand where they're at? Very hard to do, okay? You don't want to do that. You'll just lose sales you could be making, all right? Now, these are some generic situation questions. It depends on your industry. We're finding out more about what they're doing now for XYZ. Like I said, this is all going to be tweaked based on the industry. What are they using now? How long? What got them involved with it? What does their process look like, depending on what you sell? How many do they have? What are you doing now too? Like I said, we're not going to ask all of these. These are just different generic starts to situation questions based on your industry, B2C, B2B, okay? It could be what type of blank do you have now, so I understand how many, okay? Your blank, can you tell me a little bit more about that? There's many different versions here, okay? You mentioned your application, you're having some issues with blank. Can you go over that with me? Can you help me understand? What are you doing now to blank so I have more background? Like I said, depending on your industry would be dependent on how we tweak these generic versions. Now, let me show you a few different industry-specific examples. Let's say if you sell health insurance, huge industry we train. We train several large divisions of United Healthcare now. Second largest health insurance provider, trained several divisions. They are crushing it. So this is after the connection questions. Okay, so what kind of coverage do you have now, just so I understand? Oh, we have this, we have that. And what are they making you pay every month for that type of coverage? Okay, and what are they making you pay every month? Even if I'm on the phone. Now, why would I say what are they making you pay? So if they already have a health plan, do I want to position myself against what they already have with a different company? Okay. And what are they making you pay every month with that coverage? Making you pay. And look at did you hear my tonality? My tone just sounded what? Like I'm a little bit skeptical. I might know something about that company or plan they don't know. I'm not saying anything negative because that's going to get them defensive. But my tone implies I know something bad about that. I'm just not saying, okay? It's a whole different ballgame. What I'm doing is I'm seeding doubt in the prospect's mind that they might be overpaying, but they might not be on the right plan, all by using my tonality. I can show you a billion examples of that. Okay, how long have you had the plan for? Okay, yeah, and I ask because that's a fairly decent policy. I mean, we don't typically see a family of your size in that policy, though. What caused you to go with that one over something else, though? Now, what did I just do? What did I just seed? Yeah, I mean, that's a fairly decent policy. Now, why would I say fairly decent? I don't want to say that's a great policy. I don't want to say that's a horrible policy. Great policy reinforces they should stay with it. If I say that's a horrible policy and here's why, unless they're laid down, most of them will not, they'll get defensive because they know you're trying to sell them something. I mean, that's a fairly decent policy. What did my tone just communicate? More doubt. I'm seeding doubt that I might know something about the policy that's not that good. And then I'm saying, yeah, we typically don't see a family of your size. We typically don't see someone your age in that policy. What caused you to go with that one over something else, though? Causing in doubt, seeding doubt that they might not be on the policy. Then we're going to verify health information here, okay? We're going to show you how to do that in a playful tone. Now, I'm not going to show you all of this here because we're going to be here for 10 years if I showed you 161 different industries training. You know how many industries there are in the world? Only 163 according to Forbes magazine. There's subcategories of each one. We train 161 of those, including yours, and all the subcategories. Let's see if you sold employee benefits. Big industry force, okay? Okay, and about how many employees do you have on your health benefits plan? Okay, how many total members? Okay, well, okay, and what carrier do you currently use for health and employee benefits, just so I have kind of a background there? Okay, and are they fully insured or self-insured? Okay, and how long have you been with them for? And what type of plan did they put you on? Now, I'm letting them answer all these things. Oh, yeah, I'm surprised they'd put you on that plan. I mean, companies of your size, we rarely see them on that plan. What caused you to go with that plan over something else, just so I have more understanding? See, once again, I'm seeding doubt. Okay. Now, what am I seeding doubt about now? I didn't go over this. Situation questions are more factual questions. You're getting the facts about their situation, not as much of the pain yet, but I can start seeding pain using my tone. See how I did it here? Yeah, I'm really surprised they put you on that plan. I mean, companies of your size, we rarely see them on that plan. What caused you to go with that plan over something else, just so I know? I'm seeding doubt that they might be on the wrong plan. Now, let's say that you find out from your situation questions that one of their problems is they're losing a lot of their top executives to their competitors who are offering better benefit packages. Okay, so this industry kind of solves that. Okay, and other things. Let's go to a couple more here. I'm just showing you a few examples. Let's say I'm literally going to show you any industry in the world. Let's say if you sell certifications to become a builder. In some countries, you have to get certified to become a general contractor, and you have to go through courses. You have to buy, it's like schooling. Okay, so let's say you sell in the education industry. Okay, so what do you do for work? What do you do for a living now? Oh, I'm a carpenter. Okay, and are you working for yourself or having to work for someone else? See, if I'm selling certifications so they become a builder, that means when they become a builder, they start their own business as a builder. So what am I going to see? Doubt about working for someone else compared to working for themselves. See what I just did there? Oh, you're starting to work for someone else then. How long have you been having to do that? Okay, and how many hours are they making you work every week? See, making you. So I'm positioning myself that I can help them by them getting certified to learn how to do this. So in your mind, What are you hoping would happen by getting certified as a builder, though? Well, I'm hoping it would do this, it would do that. See what we're doing there. I'll give you one more example here. Let's say if you sold home improvement and you did cabinets. This is a huge industry for us. I think, I'm going to say the 5th, 6th, maybe 7th largest industry. Could be cabinets, doors, windows, awnings, sidings, carpeting, countertops, gutters, leaf filters. I mean, anything that's home improvement, home services. Huge industry we train. One of the, like I said, top 5 to 7 biggest industries. So if I can't, see I'm selling cabinets, and if I can't see the cabinets from where I'm sitting with them, I might say, okay, and what type of cabinets do you have now? So I have more understanding, or countertops, whatever you're selling. Okay, can you show me those just so I can see that? Okay, then I'm walking into the kitchen. Oh, so you have the blank ones. Oh, so you have kind of the older mahogany looking ones. Oh, so you have the kind of older, like kind of the thick oak ones from like the late 80s, 90s. Okay, so I'm seeding doubt with my tone. Okay, I'm not being negative, but I'm saying, how long have you had those in there? Okay, were they there when you moved in, or did you have them installed? Now, if they have them installed, yeah, we typically, gosh, I mean, those are fairly decent. We just typically don't see this type of cabinet in a house as nice, as big as yours. What caused you to have that type installed? Just so I have more understanding. So I'm showing empathy. I'm not making fun of them. Yeah, I asked because we typically don't see that type of cabinet in a house as big as yours. What caused you to have those put in 10 years ago? Just so I have more understanding. Okay, I want that understanding. I want to understand their situation. And I want them to understand it. Let's say if I'm in the kitchen when you start. Now looking at your cabinets, are those the stick-built cabinets, or are they more manufactured? Okay, and were they here when you moved in, or did you have them installed? Okay, and how long have you had those in? Now, those are situation questions. Then I'm going to move in, okay, into my problem awareness, which I'm going to show you next. I mean, Amy, these are fairly decent. I mean, what's causing you to feel like you might want to replace them, though? Now, why did I ask that? Yeah, these are fairly decent cabinets. What's caused you to feel like you might want to replace them? Now, what does this do right here? This causes them to defend themselves on what? Why they want to change. Is that what you want them to do, rather than you telling them why they should change? Which is more persuasive? If they tell you and get defensive on why they want to change compared to you telling them why they should change. See, I want to trigger that emotional driver in their brain that causes them to tell me and themselves why they have to change their situation. A whole lot more to that. That's just kind of an overview. Okay, let's go into problem awareness questions here. I just showed you one right there, mainly situation questions. All right, now I'm going to show you problem awareness questions. Now, they do a couple things. Problem awareness questions help you build the gap from where the prospect is. We call that their current state to where they want to be. Now, we call that their objective state. Current state, here's where they are, current situation. Objective state, here's where they want to be. Here's what the future looks like when the newfound problems are solved. They also do this. They help you and them find out what their real problems are, not the surface level problems. What are the root causes of the problem? Okay, have you ever found out what's the root cause of those problems? Because most salespeople don't even know how to ask that to get them to open up and get them to realize there is a root cause of each of their problems. And most importantly, we're finding out how those problems are affecting them even personally. Even if you're talking to a Fortune 100 company and their department head, how are the problems affecting them personally, not just as a department or a business, or if they're a consumer, how it's affecting them personally, okay? Now I'm going to give you a few examples. Well, let's go back here. We were just on health insurance. I'll just show you an example. So, you've been on XYZ plan the last 2 years. It's not a bad plan. What's caused you to feel like you might want something different? Same thing. Now I'm getting them to defend themselves on why they want something different. Okay. Okay. What else would you change though if you could? That's a probing question, depending on their answer. Okay. So is this your ideal coverage, or would you rather have something possibly better if you could? Depending on how they answer, these questions might change. Okay. Or let's say, so when you've gone to the doctor and used that policy, did you like how they covered you? Now, it depends on how they answer their situation questions. If I'm going to ask this question, or even that first question up here, I'm basing that based off their answers for my connection and situation questions. Now, train a lot more of that in our virtual training portals and obviously a free YouTube video. So when you get ready to go to the doctor, do you pick whoever you want to go to, or are you like forced to only use the doctors on the company's list? Oh, so they're making you go just to the doctors on their list though. See? Like if I'm selling a policy that covers out-of-network coverage, this is going to be a question that I'm going to seed in their mind. Or are they just forcing you? Forcing you. See, that's nobody in America or anywhere in the world likes to be forced or made to do anything. Okay, so that's just an example. There's a lot more to this that we don't really have time to go through right now. Okay, we're obviously going to clarify, we're going to probe off different questions and answers they give us. Okay, so let's go to a different industry here. I'm going to show you just a couple of examples here on each one. And like I said, if you want to know more industry specific questions and tonality for your industry, just reach out to us. Okay, let's say you're a marketing agency. Okay, and you're selling leads to companies. So, I mean, what's making you feel like the leads you're getting from XYZ vendor aren't enough to really scale your business? So, I mean, the vendor you're using, I mean, they're fairly decent. I mean, what's caused you to feel like those leads aren't going to be good enough to really scale the business to $10 million a month? If they said they want to scale to $10 million a month and they're only at $7 million a month. I'm just plugging in what they said, okay? Or the first problem awareness question I get asked, so do you like the results you've been getting? Now, even if they say yes, oh, what do you like? What do you enjoy? Oh, I like this, I like that. Then I could say, I mean, it sounds like things are going 100% perfect for you. What would you change if you could? Well, I mean, I wouldn't say they're 100% perfect. Not 100%? Well, yeah, we don't like. Now, why would I say it sounds like things are 100%? Why not say it sounds like things are perfect? Why would I put in 100%? Do you know why? Because psychologically humans do not like 100% of anything they have. Think about the thing, your favorite car that you bought a year ago. You loved that car, you were so excited, and then 6 months later, was there something you didn't like? Think about the person you're dating now. When you first dated them, a couple months, perfect as an angel, they did no wrong. 6 months later, is there something you didn't like? Yeah, of course, right? And probably something they don't like about you. See, we're human beings. We don't like 100% of anything. So it's hard for them to say, yep, I like 100%. So, I mean, it sounds like things are 100% perfect for you guys over there. What would you change if you could? Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I would say it's 100%. Not 100%? See the hand? The concern? Not 100%? Well, yeah, we like, but we also, okay, and they start to expand on their pain and tell me what they don't like, okay? Those are just a couple of different examples. I'll give you one more industry specific. Now, there's more questions after that. I just want you to know, but I'm just giving you a few examples, okay? This is just kind of, let's say you sold SaaS to trucking companies to help them weed out bad recruits, flaky recruits that sometimes get hired from Indeed or LinkedIn. They get their license, they show up to work, they go on the road for 2 weeks, and then they quit. And where does all that merchandise sit? In the trucking parking lot, collecting dust, and they're losing tens of thousands of dollars a day because it's not being delivered. This solves that for them and automates it and weeds out the bad ones. So, I mean, you've been advertising on Indeed for the past 3 years. Do you like the hires you've been getting? Now, I'm saying that in a skeptical tone. I'm verbal pausing here. Do you like the candidates it's been getting you? See, I'm concerned. My tone sounds concerned, and it sounds skeptical. Write this down. Your tone is how the prospect interprets every question you ask them. That's how they interpret your intention behind the questions you're asking them. So they feel like I'm concerned, and I'm concerned about these results because I know something about it that they might not know. It causes them to trust me more because I'm using a concern tone in this context. You're not using a concern tone in every question, but in this context it makes sense, okay? Or I might say, so you've been using Indeed the last few years. I mean, what makes you feel like that's not going to be enough to really get the right people for you? Well, don't get me wrong, we like it, but, and then they start telling you what they don't like, but more importantly, they tell themselves. Okay, now there's a lot more problem-awareness questions to ask. I'm just giving you kind of an overview here in this YouTube video. And one thing I would suggest, if you want to learn a lot more about NEPQ and you subscribe to this channel, I would suggest don't share it with your competition. Because if you share it with your competitors, even if they're a friend and they start learning what I show you on this YouTube channel, you probably don't want them to get much better at selling. So if you're going to share this channel and subscribe to it, make sure you send it to friends or people you know who are not competing with you, maybe a different industry or something. Just a word of advice there, okay? All right, let's go into solution awareness questions, okay? Now, solution awareness questions, first of all, they do two things. The first half of solution is we're finding out what have they done in the past to change their situation. More importantly, what have they done in the past to solve the newfound problems that our questions allowed them to start to see they have, that they might not even know they had those before they started. So what have they done in the past about solving these newfound problems they didn't even realize they had? Gets them to question their way of thinking and why they've allowed the problems to keep happening. The second thing it does is what does the future look like once the newfound problems are solved? So I'm going to give you a few examples of the first half and then the second half, okay? Let's go here. Okay, those are some generic examples here. Let's show you some few industry. Let's say if you're an investor and you're calling distressed properties. This is a huge industry we train. Real estate's the second largest industry we train in the world. That means residential agents, commercial agents, and then investors who call distressed properties. Huge industry for us. So before we started talking, were you guys out there looking for options to sell your home so it didn't go into foreclosure, or what were you doing to get rid of the property so it didn't hurt your credit? If that was the problem, maybe they went through divorce, they can't make the payment now because one spouse left and they're back, okay? Now, if they say, no, we haven't done anything, oh, what held you back from doing that in the last few months? Gets them to question what's held them back. If they say yes, oh, okay, so you listed it with, let's say they said they listed it with the realtor, but it didn't sell. So what do you feel really held the realtor back from being able to sell it for you, though? Now, why would I want to find that out? Because maybe they start, because I want to prevent them from saying I'm going to relist it with a different real estate agent, because maybe I want them to believe that agent's not going to be able to really sell it for them at the price they want, or even close. Obviously, I'm an investor. I'm going to buy it a lot cheaper than maybe what the market value is, okay? Or let's say they talk with another investor. Oh, what prevented you from going with that investor? Now, if you're an investor, why would you want to know what prevented them from going with other investors? Because it helps you understand what they don't like. It helps you understand what they're willing to accept. And if they're like, well, we didn't go with them because they gave us a low offer. Oh, what did they actually offer you? And then you find out you're going to offer them the same thing. Now you know you're going to have to actually have to prevent that objection from happening, okay? And I can show you how to do that in some other trainings, all right? Now, there's other questions there, but that's kind of an example of finding out what they've done in the past. Okay, and what are you hoping to get out of the home if we were able to buy it? Like, what would be your price range, and what do you really want to get out of the home? Let's say they're like, oh, I want to get $250,000, just making up a number. Now, you know the home's not worth $250,000. You know that you're probably going to only offer $180,000. Let's just say that, because you got to repair it, flip it, and you want to sell it for $280,000, okay, and you're gonna have to put $40,000 in. I'm just making something up, okay? Now, this is a pricing. Now, if I go to my partners, and let's say they give me a number lower than that. I mean, I don't even know. I have to see. Let's say they only gonna give you like $210,000 or $200,000 or even like $190,000 or less. Should I just go tell them to go kick rocks and pound sand? We can't do anything together? What do you feel like we should do? Now, this question is not going to work if you ask them that in the first 2 minutes, because you haven't built any emotional gap from where they are to where they want to be. You get 3/4 of the way the conversation, you build an emotional gap, and you've got them to emotional gap. This works wonders, because what they'll do is like, well, just see what they offer, and then we'll kind of decide what we're going to do. And now, what did I just seed in their brain? That they're probably going to get a much lower offer than what they originally thought they had. So when I go back the next day, or let's say if I go to my car, run some numbers, come back in 15 minutes, when I offered them that lower number, it's way less sticker shock than what you're getting now. Okay, that's kind of a tweak for that industry. Okay, other industries, you wouldn't use that at all. Let's say if you sold IULs, Index Universal Life. Okay, I'll show you. So before today, were you out looking for like more stable options so you can retire, by 62, or what have you been doing? And I'm going to repeat back what they said: retire by 62. Okay, let's say if they say no. Oh, what held you back from doing that? Or what prevented you from looking at other strategies in the past? If they said yes, okay, and how has that strategy worked out for you so far? Or what type of results did you get with that? It depends on, their answer would depend on the question I'm going to ask next, okay? Once again, we're finding out what have they done in the past about solving those problems. Now, let's go to let's say that, I could show you every industry here on the planet, dental implants, CRMs, and I can show you everything here. Let's go to another industry here. And there's more solution awareness questions you have to ask after that. I'm just going to give you a brief overview. Okay, medical device, huge one. So before today, were you out there looking for, other techniques that would reduce your operating time so you can do more cases, or what have you been doing? Okay. If they said no, oh, what held you back from doing that in the past? If they said yes, oh, what were you actually looking at? What held you back with going to that system? Okay. I can find that out. Okay, now there's other things I'm going to do after that. Okay, medical device, huge industry we train. Car dealerships, let's go to a different one here. Weight loss, I could show you everything here. Okay, now let's go to a few different examples of the second half of solution awareness questions. Okay, now let's show you what the future looks like once the newfound problems are solved. Let's say that you are a recruiter, you sell for a staffing agency, huge industry we train as well. So let's say that we're able to find you the candidate with that talent, unique talent of managing a sales force of 250 people. That's a lot of people. We do this like we do with our other clients. Having that manager in place right now, how do you see that benefiting you the most though? Oh, it would benefit me because of this, because of that, because of this. See, they're telling themselves how that would benefit them. Then I'm going to say, okay, but on your end, what would it do for you, let's say personally? And you lower your tone into that concern tone. Okay, now this is 3/4 of the way in the conversation. After you build an emotional gap, they have emotionally opened up to you. Okay, you're not going to ask these questions in the first 2 minutes when you have no trust, when there's no gap yet. Okay, but how would it be different though? You being able to spend that time with your family, not having to work that extra 4 hours a day, trying to manage all these people filling in. How would your life be? How would it be different maybe than it is now? See, and I'm concerned. I have a concerned tone, a tone that shows empathy. Now, I'm only repeating back what that prospect said. He said, I have to work an extra 2 to 4 hours a day to fill in for that management spot because we haven't found the right person. I'm just going to plug that in. That causes the prospect to feel like you understand their unique situation the most. Prospects always go with the company or salesperson they feel understands their unique situation the most. Okay, let's say if you sell you're a personal trainer, you sell weight loss or you have fitness or building more muscle or losing more weight. Okay, and let's say this prospect says they want to lose 105 pounds. Okay, so let's say that we come in and we're able to help you lose the 105 pounds. And more importantly, keep it off where it doesn't come back. What would you be able to do that you feel you can't do right now or can't do at your best right now? Oh gosh, I'd be able to play basketball with my son. I'd be able to go jogging like I used to. I'd be able to do this. I'd be able to do that. Okay, now they're telling themselves what the future looks like for them once the problem is solved, losing the 105 pounds. Okay, but being able to do that, what would that do for you? What would it do for you personally? Oh, it would do this. Now this is where the emotion comes out. Okay, this is logical. Oh, I'd be able to hike. I'd be able to play basketball with my son. I'd be able to work out. That's logical things they said it would do. Now I need to open them up more emotionally. Okay, remember, human beings make decisions logically or emotionally. 100% emotion. Brain studies prove that. There's no doubt among behavior scientists. How would it be different though? You being able to lose the 105 pounds and most importantly, keep it off or it doesn't come back. How do you see your life being, maybe different than it is now? Okay? Now, a lot more examples I could show you for every industry for solution awareness questions. All right, let's now look at NEPQ consequence questions. All right, I'll give you a few examples, different industries as well. So consequence questions really do two things. First of all, they help your prospect, they actually get your prospect to defend themselves on why they need to make the change, why they need to buy from you, okay? I'll show you what I mean by that, because you're not going to ask a consequence question the first couple of minutes of a conversation because you haven't built a gap yet. You haven't built a gap from where they are to where they want to be. You haven't helped them find problems yet that might not have known they had. After I've done that and emotionally open them up, I then can ask consequence questions where they defend themselves on why they need to change. I'll show you a few different industry-specific examples, okay? They also get them to question their way of thinking that's allowed the problems to keep happening, all right? So I'll give you a few generic versions, okay? These are generic, okay? Don't say these word for word because you don't want to use generic terms. You don't want to ask generalized questions because you're going to get generalized generic, vague answers back from your prospects. That's not what you want, okay? Well, what if you don't do anything about this problem and it actually gets worse? Now, you're not going to say problem, you're going to say what the problem is. What if you don't do anything about, this low quality lead flow you're getting from vendor X and your sales keep going down every month? See, that would be specific if I was a marketing agency talking to a company. So you're going to repeat the problem and you're going to repeat what the real situation is. You're not going to use those generic terms. Now notice I started off in a challenging tone. Well, what if you don't do anything about this and the situation gets worse? Okay, start with a challenging tone. I want to trigger their emotion to defend themselves, and then I'm going to lower my tone at the very end into that concern tone, a tone that shows empathy. Remember, your tone is how the prospect interprets your intention behind every question you ask. Here's another generic word. Have you thought about what would happen if your company doesn't do anything about this? Or what are the ramifications if this doesn't actually change? Now, once again, those are all generic. You'd want to plug in the situation, not say the word situation, okay? Let me show you just a few different industry-specific examples so you can get kind of an idea. Now, let's say you sell dental implants. Huge industry we train. We train one company to 700 million plus in this. What happens if you don't do anything about this and you keep losing the bone density in your jaw and now you can't even get the implants? So I'm going to start off challenging. Okay, let me show you that again. I'm starting with the challenging tone. I'm going to end it with a concern tone, a tone that shows empathy, okay? What happens, John, and on the flip side, because you certainly sound motivated, but what happens if you don't do anything about this and you keep losing the bone density in your jaw and now you can't even get the implants? See, I'm concerned for you, the consequence. I start off challenging, trigger their emotion, gets them to defend themselves, and then I lower my tone in the concern tone so they know I'm concerned for the consequence of that happening, okay? Let's see, I'll give you another example here. Well, let's say if they said this, well, I don't know, I just hope that won't happen, right? They could say that, okay, depending on how you're toned, right? Then I might say, well, I mean, do you want to have to keep living with that pain in your mouth if you didn't have to? Well, no, if I didn't have to. See, that's a way to open up. Now, let me give another example. Let's say if you sell employee benefits, okay, B2B, and the problem that this company has is they're losing some of their top people, employees, to competitor X that is offering them a better benefit package. So you can solve that problem for them, that attrition. Okay, but on the flip side, what happens if you guys just keep the same plan and your top people keep going over to XYZ competitor? I mean, what happens to the business at that point? See, challenging to then concerned, okay? All right, now, there's different nuances you're going to say, because most of the time you use the right tone and you've built a gap before. They're like, oh no, we need to change, definitely we need to. Well, you certainly sound motivated, but why look at doing this now? I mean, why not push it down the road like a lot of companies do who end up going under? Okay, if that's the case, if that's the context, all right? Okay, here's one right here. Marketing agency, let's say you're talking to a real estate agent that needs a higher quality lead because they're not getting that many listings. Without listings, they don't make any sales, okay? Well, what if you don't, well, John, you certainly sound motivated. So after I ask my last solution awareness question, so consequence comes after your last solution awareness question. That's when I got them to see and feel what the future looks like once the newfound problems are solved. So they're on a high emotional state. I'm then going to transition. I mean, you certainly sound motivated, but what if you don't do anything about this and you keep getting these lower quality leads, like you said, that don't even pick up when you call? I mean, what are the consequences for your department at that point? See, now I'm concerned, challenging to concerned, okay? I mean, do you want to have to go through all that if you didn't have to? You'd only say that if they respond to, well, I don't know, I'd have to figure something out. That is a way to re-loop and reframe that way of thinking right there, okay? How about a car dealership? What happens if you just keep this car and it keeps breaking down on your way to work? I mean, what would happen to your job at that point? And let's say their problem was they have a used car, it's broken down 3 times in the last 4 months, and they're afraid that their boss is going to fire them because they keep getting late at work, okay? I could show you 50 gazillion other examples for every industry. Let's say you sold solar, okay? Same one, big industry we train here. Well, what happens if you don't do anything about this? And Edison, I mean, they keep raising rates every year like they always have, but now, in 25 years from now, you're 75, 80 years old, so having to pay the bill every month. But where's the bill going to be then? Yeah, probably 3 or 4 times higher, but now you're retired, so you're on like a limited income. I mean, With the bill that high and a limited income, how would you guys pay for it at that point? You're concerned. Okay? Challenging to concern. Now what I just did here, that's a long question. Anytime you have a long question, you really have to verbal pace it out with lots of verbal pauses. Because if you say it too fast, what happens if you don't do anything about this? They keep raising rates every year like they have, and now you're 75, still having to pay the bill every month, but the bill is more than 3 times as high now, and now you're on income. How would you pay for it? Oh, I don't know, I'd figure something out. See, one of the biggest reasons why you get so many of your prospects that give you vague, generalized, surface level answers is you haven't learned how to verbal pace them out, and when you ask them too fast, you give the prospect no time to internalize and think deeper about the question you asked. When I pace it out, you keep them engaged because they're hanging on to every word, and it causes their brain to literally think deeper about what you just asked. It makes it more emotional to them, okay? Now, there's other things you're gonna say depending on what they say on how they ask. Let's say if you sold cybersecurity, big industry for us. So if you continue to use XYZ vendor, what are the consequences if this doesn't change with your false positive rates and you continue rejecting good customers for the bank? Okay, depending on what they say, I'm going to plug that in. Okay, let me see if I can give you one more here. Let's go, okay, let me give you a complete different example. Let's say that you're a therapist and you're trying to get more clients and you're a marriage therapist. I go this, so what if you don't do anything about this and you keep having these issues with your husband where you're arguing and feeling all this resentment and it keeps going on another 3, 6, 12 months? I mean, what would happen to the marriage at that point? Okay, gets them to internalize that, okay? Or I could just lean in and say, what happens to your marriage if you don't do anything about this? What happens to your marriage if you don't do anything about this? See, soft tone, concern tone, okay? All right, now, those are just a few examples. You want industry-specific examples for your industry, just message us. Maybe you can get into our advanced training programs. That's where we train you all that, all the nuances. Okay, we're now going to go into, I'm not really going to go into presentations. You know, we'll save that for another training. But after we transition, so right now at this point, we're going to transition into one or two things. Okay, if you sell B2C, business to consumer, and you're in a one-call close. Okay, so there's lots of industries that you just close the first time you talk to them. You're just going to simply transition into your presentation. And then you're going to ask commitment questions to close them. You could be in a B2C industry where it's a 2-call close. Let's say if you sold pools, for example, and you have a first call discovery, second call proposal. Okay, it could be a second call. So you would transition into setting up the second call. You could be in SaaS where maybe your second appointment is the next step demo. You could be in some type of enterprise level sales environment where your average sales cycle is 9 to 12 months. So whatever you're doing, you're transitioning into the next step of your process. You're not just saying, okay, well, get back to me. I'll call you next week with a proposal. That's not going to work. You have to have something scheduled on the calendar with that prospect and or company, depending on what you sell. Otherwise, you have nothing. So if you're in a one-call close, you're going to transition into the presentation and then close them. If you're in a 2 calls or more, you're going to transition into whatever the next step is of your sales process. Could be next step department head meeting, next step meeting with legal, next step meeting with another decision maker, next step meeting with a proposal. It just depends on what you sell. So after the presentation, whether you did the presentation on the first appointment or call or whatever you sell, if you're in a 1-call close situation, or if it's in a 2-call, 3-call close, or like I said, this could be virtual at the home, could be in their office, depending on if you sell business to consumer or business to business. Wherever you're at the end of the presentation, proposal, whatever, this is where you're going to commit them to take the next step and purchase what you're offering. Now, there's 2 forms of commitment. I don't like to use the word closing. I feel like it demeans people. Nobody likes to be closed. You're okay being committed to get your problem solved and get where you want, right? It's a different way of thinking. So the first way of commitments are what we call micro commitments, okay? Now, micro commitment, let me show you this, is where you commit them to take smaller steps that lead to the larger step to purchase what you're offering. And that's if you're in more than a 1-call close. When I say call, I don't mean on the phone. Could be on Zoom, could be on the phone, Could be at their home if it's a consumer, could be at their company if it's a business, could be at the door, it just depends, okay? So whatever the next step is, you're getting them to make a micro commitment, next step demo, next step meeting, next step proposal, whatever it is. That's one form of commitment. The other form of commitment questions used is where we're going to commit them to take the next step and purchase what you're offering, okay? Now, this is generic, but you can pretty much use this in pretty much every industry. I can lean in and say, after I've brought up the pricing, all that stuff, the different options, whatever they have depending on what I sell. So this is after I've brought up the pricing, funding they need, all that stuff. I can lean in and say, do you feel like this could be the answer for you? Now, notice, why did I say feel? Why not say think? Feel is emotional. I'm keeping them on their emotional side of their brain. Think is logical. Remember, do human beings make buying decisions emotionally or logically? Emotionally, 100%. Brain studies prove this. There's no debate among science on this, okay? So I use the word feel. If I start to say, do you think this could be answer? I just took their brain from emotional side of the brain to logical side of the brain. Then I'm going to get more think it over objections, do more research objections, more cautiousness. So I want to keep them on the, do you feel like this could be the answer for you? Notice that verbal pause there. Don't say it too fast, okay? Then you're going to get one or two responses. Nobody's going to be like, nope, this is not what I'm looking for. They're not going to go this far if that's the case. They're either going to say, I really do, or they're going to say, I do, but, and they're going to tell you their concern. And that's what you want. That's why I put this question here, to cause them to either say, yes, I do, or yes, I do, but, and they're going to tell you, but I don't have the money. But I'm not sure it's going to work for this. And at least they start to tell me what the real concern is. Do you feel like this could be the answer for you? Yeah, we do. Well, hold on. Why do you feel like it is so? Well, we like this because of this, because of that, because of this. And they start telling you why they feel it's what they're looking for. But more importantly, who are they telling? They're telling themselves. See, you're always learning how to get the prospect to sell themselves, not you sell them. Okay? Way easier if you learn how to get them to sell themselves than you trying to do it. I will tell you, your prospects are far more persuasive when they are selling themselves on why they need to buy from you than you trying to convince them yourself. I can tell you it's a 10-to-1 difference in persuasion ability. And then I might ask a second commitment question. So what specific aspects of what we've covered do you feel like are really going to help you the most? And they start to tell themselves. And then basically you're just telling them what the next step is. Well, I don't really have anything else to go over with you. It looks like we covered the basis of what you're looking for in XYZ. Really the next step would be, you tell them what the next step is. You know, we can make some type of arrangement for your XYZ. You can use debit card, credit card, depending on what you sell. You can send you an invoice. It all depends on your industry. And then at the very end, I'm saying, would that be appropriate? Or would that be appropriate, or how do you want to proceed from here? I would stick to would that be appropriate at the very beginning. Let me give you one or two different industry-specific examples so you can see this. You're going to see this. It's very similar. Let's say if I'm selling B2B and I'm selling business consulting to help build culture in large organizations. It's a big industry with training as well. Do you feel like this could be the answer for you guys? Yeah, I feel like, well, hold on. Why do you feel like it is though? I'm kind of like pushing them. Well, hold on. Why do you feel like it is? Well, we like it because of this, because of that. Well, what specific aspects of what we've covered do you guys feel are really going to help you retain your top executives the most so? Because if that is the problem I'm solving, the major problem that they had is they're losing their top people because it's a bad culture, I'm solving that with better culture training, okay? All right, then I could say, well, I like this, I like that. Then I can push away if I want to. And I say, well, for you guys, why look at doing this now? I mean, you certainly sound motivated, but why not just push it down the road like a lot of companies do who end up losing a lot of their best people? Well, the reason why we have to do it now is, and they start telling you why they have to do it now, but more importantly, they're telling themselves. And they are far more persuasive than you telling them that. Now, can I ask this question in the first 5 minutes of a conversation? No, because I haven't built trust, credibility, or a gap. But I can at the very end of that sales process very easily. Let me show you one more example here. Okay, let's say you sell final expense insurance, okay, or life insurance. This is the biggest industry we train in the world, okay? Now, let's say you've given them 3 different policy options. Let's say a 10K funeral, 20K funeral, and a 30K funeral, okay? Different life insurance options for final expense, funeral insurance, okay? Then I'm going to lean in. It's a little bit different. And I'm going to say, which one of those would you lean more towards? Which one of those would you possibly lean more towards? I would say option 2. Really, option 2? I thought you'd say option 1. You're going to say the worst one. Why option 2? Well, the reason why we want option 2 is, and they start telling themselves why they want the better option, okay? And then I might lean in and say, do you feel like this is what you're looking for to, I don't know, like really take the burden off your kids so they're not responsible to have to pay for all those expenses when you pass away? Notice how I'm plugging in what I'm preventing from happening by them getting that policy. I'm preventing them for their kids being burdened with that responsibility to have to pay for all those expenses when the parent passes away, which is hard for the parent to be like, no, I want my kids to be burdened with that, okay? Well, that makes sense. Really, the next step would be is to make sure that you're eligible. I wouldn't say that. I'd say that over qualified. I can get that pulled up to you and you go right into that process. That's just a different kind of way you would do commitment questions for like the life insurance, health insurance, final expense insurance compared to something else. Now, let's say if I'm a real estate agent, look at it. Do you feel like this marketing plan we put in to sell the home, do you feel like that's going to be the answer for you guys? Oh, for sure. Well, hold on. Why do you feel like it is that? Well, we like it because of this, because of that. Then I can say, well, I don't really have anything else to go over with you. It looks like we covered the basis of what you're looking for to sell the property quickly. Really, the next step would be is we'd have you fill out the listing agreement, arrange for the photographer to come out and take pictures of your home, and then start listing it to make sure we can get it sold quickly. Would that be appropriate? Just a nice closing commitment question. All right, I just gave you some different examples of NEPQ. The psychology behind it just gave you an overview. There's a lot more to that. This is a YouTube video, right? So this might be an hour and 15 minutes long. Connection questions to situation questions to problem awareness to solution awareness, consequence questions, okay? You can then transition into whatever the next step is. If you're in a one-call conversation or close, you're going to transition into the presentation. If you're a two-call close or more, you're just going to transition to whatever the next step is in your sales process. And then finally, a few examples of commitment questions to get them to commit to take the next step and purchase what you're offering. Hope that helped you. Now, you want to learn more things like this because what I showed you is very basic. If you subscribe to the channel, my only advice for you would be do not share the channel with anybody who you compete with. You don't want them learning what I will show you in this channel unless you like to have more competitors. Now, if you got a friend, somebody else you know that's in a different industry or you don't compete with, for sure, by all means, share it with them.